Let's face it, every F1 themed YouTuber has made prediction videos for teams and drivers for future seasons of Formula 1 at some point in their lives. Some of them play it safe and just predict the upcoming season. Some of them decide to be brave and predict the grid for 3 or 5 years' time. However, I'm going to go one step further and predict the grid for 2022 and every season all the way up to and including 2026. Of course, I do have a few things to clear up first. Naturally, there's no way of knowing which of the current teams will still be around in 5 years' time, but for this video, we'll just keep things the same. No new teams and no departing teams, even if Haas are currently looking like a sinking ship on wheels. There is also no way of knowing how well these teams will do where the 2022 changes take effect, so we're going to play it pretty safe by not trying to guess the pecking order. There are a few bold predictions here and there, but I think I have a reasonable chance of getting a decent correct answer percentage. Anyway, let's get this show on the road and start with the easiest season to predict. Since I'm obsessed with doing things alphabetically, that is how I'll share my predictions for the teams. So we start with Alfa Romeo, one of the less easy teams to predict for next season. Well, as of this video, Alfa have now lost 8th in the Constructors' standings, which I'm sure is the minimum the team would want, and thus won't be too happy with their drivers, so Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi will not be retained for 22. Kimi will probably make this decision himself, and had they held on to 8th, Antonio might have been given an extra year, but alas no. In their place will step Valtteri Bottas and Callum Ilott, combining experience and youth. It might not seem like a good long-term move for Valtteri, but I'm sure he'd settle for just one more season in F1 after being dropped by Mercedes. And Callum's seat will be a reward for all the practice sessions he's done, and all his patience. On to AlphaTauri, and I don't see anything changing there. However, Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda will both be having make or break seasons in 2022, with several Red Bull juniors waiting for their own big opportunity. Alpine are next, and again, no change. The Hungarian Grand Prix proved that the team are in a very good place at the moment with Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, and the regulation changes could well be the beginning of a glorious era for them. Aston Martin, Ferrari, Haas, and McLaren will also remain the same. Now for Mercedes, and with Bottas getting a second chance at Alpha thanks to Toto Wolff, the door is now wide open for George Russell alongside Lewis Hamilton. No one really knows how Mercedes will fare in 2022, but now is surely the time to let the heir to Mercedes join the current monarch and for them to learn from each other. Red Bull are the final team on this list to remain the same. Sergio Perez has been given what those before him have not, an extra season, but this will probably be one of the most important of his career. Finally, we come to Williams, who have now lost Mr. Saturday. While he has divided people, I think Nicholas Latifi is worthy at least one more season in that team. A complete reshuffle just doesn't seem like a smart decision for Williams right now. They'll want someone experienced though if they're going to make a serious return to form. Enter Stoffel Van Dorn after a frustrating season in Formula E. While Nick de Vries does seem like a logical choice, I wonder, why would he leave a championship if he's in a position where he can win it this season? Van Dorn makes more sense because he is the official Mercedes reserve, and leading a team might bring out the best in him, and show what McLaren missed out on. He won't be there for the long haul, but it might at least help him finish the previously unfinished business. While the previous season remained very consistent, 2023 will be much more of a silly season. Alpine, Aston Martin and Mercedes are the only teams with the same lineup as 2022. For Alpha, Bottas will decide to call it a day on his own terms. He might have spent a year in a midfield car, but at least the final season of his career wasn't another Mercedes embarrassment. In his place will step Théo Pourchaire after 2 very successful and eventful F2 seasons. Pourchaire will be itching to become France's next big thing. For AlphaTauri, it is all change. 2 Red Bull juniors from different corners of the world have finally graduated to F1, Liam Lawson and Yuri Vips. Considering how close they are in F2 currently, predicting who will fare better is pretty difficult, but both drivers deserve their seats just as much as the other. Now for Ferrari, and Charles Leclerc is still very much the team's bread and butter. Carlos Sainz has had 2 very decent seasons in the team, but for 23 he decides to join some old friends of his, paving the way for Mick Schumacher. Mick is only in his 3rd season, so the team will have to be patient with him, but there's no way they'll let him drive that Haas for a 3rd season if they want to remain loyal to him. Speaking of Haas, Dimitri Mazepin is still keeping faith in his son. Maybe he's calmed it down by this point, maybe he's improved, who knows. Joining him at the now very Russian team is Robert Schwartzman. Alpha didn't give him a shot for 21 or 22, so Robert chooses to go with the other Ferrari customer team to at least give him a place in F1. Now McLaren and Daniel Ricciardo has had enough. McLaren could have been his rightful home, but not while the boy from Bristol was there. So at 33, he retires from F1 to find new ventures. In his place will be someone who can easily settle for being number 2 to Lando Norris. After all, McLaren saved his career before, they can do it again. Yep, Sainz will go back to McLaren, and the great partnership can continue to grow. Now for Red Bull. I said before how Perez, Gasly and Tsunoda would have very important seasons in 22, and I think Perez will decide to leave Red Bull and the sport, making way for Tsunoda. If Red Bull wants him as their next big thing, they'll need to give him time, and the 2 full seasons at AlphaTauri might be of considerable use. Finally Williams, and Latifi has also decided to depart Formula 1. Van Dorn isn't sure if he wants to return to Formula E just yet, so he gets 1 extra year. Alongside him will be Pierre Gasly, now free from the Red Bull group and now with more independence than before. Considering we had 4 rookies and 3 retirements in 2023, you think this year would be a lot more straightforward. Well, you'd be wrong. At the end of 2023, something happens. Alonso, Vettel, and Hamilton all retire, making 2024 the start of a remarkable new era. All 3 world champions have either improved their team or their teammates, and now, very content with what they've achieved, 23 is their farewell year. For 24, only 3 teams will stay neutral with their lineup: Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull. Realising that he probably isn't destined for Ferrari, Ilott decides to leave Alfa Romeo, and Arthur Leclerc will team up with Pourchaire, giving the team 2 of the gutsiest drivers in recent memory. It's a similar story for AlphaTauri. Vips knows there are other Red Bull juniors keen to take his seat, so he takes a big gamble and leaves the Red Bull Academy, making way for the man dominating F3 right now, Dennis Hauger. Ocon is still at Alpine in the 5th year on his contract, and now that Alonso's retired, Oscar Piastri's patience has paid off, showing that the Alpine Academy does work. Sometimes. The Strolls still have control over Aston Martin, but by this point, Lance needs to get a wiggle on if he hasn't already done so by 24. His teammate will be Mercedes Junior Frederic Vesti. There's no guarantee he'll make it to the main team, but his F3 and F2 performances earn him an F1 drive at the very least. Haas are next, and Nikita Mazepin has lost his patience. He decides to step down from driving and take a different role at the team his father saved. Schwartzman's still there, but the Mazepins really want another Russian on the grid, so they look through their options in the junior series. And one name from a relatively new series catches their eye. They sign the first female on the grid in 48 years, Irina Sidorkova, and the W Series have finally helped a driver reach F1. Hamilton's retirement has left Mercedes in a bit of a pickle. Do they sign Max Verstappen in the hope he and Russell will get on without problems, or do they go with someone else? They choose the latter, Gasly, after a single season at Williams. They don't expect Pierre to match George that often, but it will at least help them get those 1-2 finishes they're used to getting. Van Dorn decides to return to Formula E, leaving 2 empty spaces at Williams. These spaces are filled by Vips and Ilott. They might not be part of the academies that help them reach Formula 1 anymore, but I'm sure these 2 would be very content to at least be in F1. And if Williams no longer need paid drivers at this point, this would be a no-brainer. 2025 will be a year where we can hold our breath for a little bit, as this season is a little more straightforward than the last 2. Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, Haas, Mercedes and Williams stick to their guns, but don't worry, there's at least one ridiculous prediction you guys will refuse to believe. At AlphaTauri, Hauger will spend his sophomore season alongside another rookie, 19-year-old American Jack Crawford, making it 5 Red Bull juniors progressing to AlphaTauri in the last 5 years. They are clearly doing something right this decade. Alpine decide not to extend Ocon's contract and instead choose Caio Collet. Collet has a lot of help back home, with Brazil desperate to get one of their drivers in F1 for the first time in 8 years. Lance Stroll decides F1 is no longer the place for him, and he makes a beeline for the world of IndyCar. In his place steps some unknown Dutchman called Max Verstappen. See, I told you it would be ridiculous, but if there's one team that can make a dramatic improvement under the rule changes, it's the Silverstone-based team. By 2025, Verstappen will seriously be questioning if Red Bull is the place for him, and if Mercedes are focused on Russell and Russell only, he's better off just taking a gamble. It'll either kill his career or rejuvenate it, but will almost certainly be the story of the decade. McLaren are next, and at the age of 31, Carlos Sainz will leave the sport to drive for his father's Extreme E team. Joining Norris at McLaren will be Ocon. After helping Alpine become a force to be reckoned with, Esteban decides to do the same for McLaren, and he's now back in a Mercedes-powered team, which could lead to even more impressive things in the future. Red Bull have now lost Verstappen, and a new era is set for them. They go with the safe option of Liam Lawson and are ready to see if he or Yuki should be team leader going into the second half of the decade. It's 2026 now, and the F1 world is looking very different to how it did when we started this video. AlphaTauri, Aston Martin and Red Bull are the only three teams to retain their 25 drivers. No one knows how Ferrari have done these last 5 years, but Charles Leclerc wants to try something new. If he can't win a championship with Ferrari, maybe he can make a team stronger. And as we all know, there's nothing stronger than family. Charles joins his brother Arthur at Alfa Romeo. Oscar Piastri is another driver taking a major gamble, leaving a vacancies at Alpine. Since retiring, Fernando Alonso has taken an ambassador role at the team, and 2025 was the first season since 1998 not to have a Spaniard on the grid. Somehow, I don't think Fernando would allow that to happen again, so he looks for a promising young Spaniard to mentor. He picks Nelia Marti. As an academy driver, she's received a lot of support and backing from W Series, but not only that, Alonso has noticed her pace. Now Ferrari have lost their original crown prince, Pourchaire is promoted from Alpha, and now there is absolute equal status between himself and Schumacher, but only one will be their main man come the end of the decade. After 2 seasons, Sidorkova decides to take a break from Haas, and the team decides to promote a Ferrari junior in Dino Beganovic, who will be waiting in the wings in case the Pourchaire-Schumacher relationship does not work out. McLaren have had a busy start to the decade, but a big curveball is thrown at them when Norris is given an offer very difficult to refuse, and he departs the team after 7 seasons and several more years of development. After establishing a good relationship in 2024, Ocon is teamed up with Piastri again, and if Norris and Sainz couldn't bring McLaren back to the top, maybe these two can. And what exactly was this offer that Lando Norris received, I hear you ask? A seat alongside Russell at Mercedes. The boys from Brackley have 2 Brits once again, and if the last few seasons haven't gone their way, this might be the start of their fight back. Finally, we come to Williams, and Vips and Ilott decide to move to pastures new, making the way for Gasly, who had some success at Mercedes but now wants to help Williams get some. Vips is sad to leave F1 but will happily move aside for his fellow Estonian, another Mercedes junior, Paul Aron. And there we are, 5 seasons of F1 all predicted, and I am very much looking forward to seeing how wrong these all turn out to be. But that is what we love about Formula 1, the fact we can look into our crystal balls and still not get a definite answer as to what the future holds in the F1 world. There'd be no fun in doing this if F1 was as predictable as some make it out to be. The only thing that's for sure about F1, its teams and whoever drives for them, is that nothing is for sure. If you want to challenge yourself the same way I have, let me know in the comments if you could predict the teams and drivers for the next 5 years. I would love to see if your guesses are as bonkers as mine. As always, thanks for watching. I'm going to have a lie down to give my brain a rest. See you next time.